Two U.S. Navy aircraft crashing just 30 minutes apart in the South China Sea has become far more than an aviation mishap. It is now a flashpoint in one of the world's most volatile regions. The back-to-back loss of a Seahawk helicopter and a Super Hornet from the USS Nimitz instantly raised alarms inside the Pentagon and across the Indo-Pacific, where the U.S. military routinely operates to uphold freedom of navigation and counter Beijing's territorial claims. While all crew members survived, the incident marks one of the most serious non-combat aviation days in Pacific Fleet history, and it occurred in the most geopolitically sensitive waters on Earth. As the Navy launches its investigation, the official line is clear. Both crashes were unrelated and occurred during routine operations. But behind that statement lies a more complex reality. With hundreds of millions of dollars in advanced aircraft lost, recovery missions now become a race, not only to secure wreckage with sensitive technology, but also to prevent Chinese forces from exploiting the crash sites. This comes at a time when analysts warn that America's high-tempo deployments from the Middle East to the Pacific are pushing pilots, airframes, and support crews to their operational limits.
中方注意到有关报道，如果美方提出中方愿意从人道主义的角度出发，向美方提供必要的协助。我们想强调的是，美方有关军机是在南海开展军事演练时坠毁的。
The geopolitical fallout was immediate. Beijing publicly offered humanitarian assistance, while simultaneously accusing the U.S. of destabilizing the region and using the crash to undermine American credibility. Chinese state media amplified the moment, framing the incident as proof of a declining U.S. naval edge, especially ironic given its timing. Just as Washington and Beijing prepared for high-stakes diplomatic talks, the echoes of history are unmistakable. Like the 2001 Hainan Island collision, this crisis shows how quickly military operations in contested airspace can spark narrative warfare, diplomatic tension, and strategic posturing. Now, as the U.S. focuses on recovery and damage control, a larger question looms. Can America continue sustaining this tempo of power projection in the Indo-Pacific without operational strain and without giving rivals propaganda victories when accidents occur? In a region where perception shapes deterrence, where every movement is tracked, and where every mishap becomes a message, even a non-combat crash can shift momentum in the broader struggle for influence over the South China Sea. In the wake of the two back-to-back crashes, the U.S. Navy has opened a full investigation to uncover the causes behind what it describes as unrelated, non-hostile mishaps that occurred during routine flight operations. Despite that preliminary assurance, the Navy has deliberately withheld any deeper specifics, offering no public assessment yet on the weather conditions, potential mechanical failures, procedural errors, or the nature of the missions being flown at the time. This silence is standard in early phases of military aviation inquiries. Investigators will now spend weeks, sometimes months, reconstructing the final seconds of each flight through cockpit voice recordings, flight data downloads, maintenance logs, crew interviews, and mission tapes. On an aircraft carrier, where deck operations run with extreme tempo and razor-thin margins of error, even minor oversights, rushed decisions, or subtle mechanical anomalies can cascade into catastrophe. Until the Navy aligns its physical evidence with digital telemetry and eyewitness accounts, it will not commit to a definitive explanation. The financial consequences of the crashes add another layer of gravity to the situation. A single FA-18F Super Hornet cost over $60 million, and when paired with the loss of an advanced MH-60R Seahawk, the total monetary damage rises into the hundreds of millions of dollars. But the price tag is not the Navy's biggest concern. Both aircraft contained highly sensitive systems, from encrypted communications and electronic warfare suites to mission sensors and targeting technology. In a contested arena like the South China Sea, wreckage recovery becomes a strategic mission, not a procedural one. Salvage teams must race to retrieve debris before rival forces, especially China, can track, interfere with, or exploit the crash sites. Protecting the hardware from prying foreign eyes is now just as important as understanding why it fell from the sky. This incident also feeds into a worrisome pattern that defense analysts have been observing for years: intensifying operational risk linked to relentless deployment cycles. The Navy has seen a string of recent aviation mishaps, including the 2022 crash of an F-35C from the USS Carl Vinson in the same region, later attributed to pilot task overload and fatigued decision-making. Add to that the 2 Super Hornets lost in the Red Sea earlier this year, and a trend emerges. U.S. naval aviation is being pushed to its physical, mechanical, and human limits. With great power competition accelerating and the Navy maintaining near constant presence from the Middle East to the Western Pacific, even routine operations are now unfolding under conditions of elevated stress, compressed timelines, and mounting fatigue. In such an environment, the crashes of October 26th are no longer just accidents. They are a symptom of a force strained by its own global commitments, flying at a tempo where risk is no longer occasional, but structural. The back-to-back crashes did not occur in empty seas or neutral territory. They unfolded in the world's most hotly contested maritime zone, where the United States has maintained an enduring presence under the banner of freedom of navigation. The U.S. Navy routinely patrols the South China Sea to challenge China's sweeping territorial claims and to keep open one of the planet's most vital shipping arteries, through which 1/3 of global trade flows. That presence has intensified in recent years. In 2023 alone, the U.S. deployed 3 carrier strike groups, carrying out 6 major access operations throughout the South China Sea. These deployments underscore a hard truth. America's forward forces operate under constant geopolitical pressure, in a region where military shadows overlap and miscalculations can escalate with terrifying speed. The dual crashes triggered a wave of sharp, layered reactions, beginning with Beijing. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a carefully worded statement offering humanitarian assistance to the U.S. A polite diplomatic gesture on the surface, yet the spokesperson immediately followed it by condemning Washington's presence in the region, asserting that U.S. military activities are the root of instability in the South China Sea.
We're at Fiery Cross Reef, which is a part of the Spratly Islands in the South China Sea. Currently what we're looking at is some construction on a...
Meanwhile, state-aligned analysts in the Global Times pounced on the incident, framing it as evidence of a declining operational capability of the U.S. The Navy, an institution they claimed, is overstretched by global commitments, perpetual deployments, and a worn-down maintenance cycle. The timing amplified the propaganda value. As the crashes made headlines, President Donald Trump was on a high-stakes diplomatic tour of Asia, preparing for meetings with President Xi Jinping, meaning every regional narrative, military, diplomatic, and symbolic, was suddenly under a global spotlight. To understand the volatility of the moment, it is impossible to ignore the historical echoes. The incident revived memories of the April 2001 Hainan Island collision, when a USA Navy EP-3 reconnaissance plane and a Chinese J-8II fighter jet collided mid-air, killing the Chinese pilot and forcing the U.S. aircraft to make an emergency landing on Hainan Island. The 24-member American crew was detained, sparking an international crisis that brought Washington and Beijing to the brink of a diplomatic rupture. That episode remains a stark reminder that military operations in close proximity, especially in the South China Sea, carry a constant risk of sudden escalation, nationalist outrage, and unintended conflict. Now, more than 2 decades later, history's lesson has not changed, only the stakes have. With China stronger, the US more present, and the region more militarized than ever before, even accidents can become geopolitical lightning rods. In this environment, a crash is never just a crash. It is a test of messaging, resolve, and narrative dominance between 2 great powers circling the same waters. In the immediate term, the US Navy's priority is clear: secure the wreckage, recover the technology, and close the investigation. Salvage crews, intelligence teams, and aviation analysts will now work in parallel to determine exactly what went wrong, examining flight data, maintenance histories, and environmental factors to confirm what the Navy has already emphasized: that these mishaps were non-hostile, unrelated accidents during routine operations. In contested waters like the South China Sea, however, even a non-combat crash can trigger a cascade of operational, diplomatic, and military consequences, which is why the Pentagon will move swiftly and carefully to complete the investigation and maintain confidence among allies and partners. Yet the strategic aftermath may prove far more consequential than the technical findings. As one defense analyst noted, the loss of reputation is arguably even worse than the financial cost. The near simultaneous crashes, just 30 minutes apart, hand propaganda ammunition to rival powers eager to question the reliability, readiness, and resilience of US forces operating in the Indo-Pacific. China, in particular, will seize on the optics, using state media and official statements to paint the US as a declining power overstretched by global commitments. Even without proof of systemic failure, perception becomes its own battlefield, and in geopolitics, narrative dominance can shape public trust, alliance confidence, and diplomatic leverage. Looking ahead, the incident underscores the precarious balance the region now sits on.
For Washington, the task now is to recover, reassure, and reset. For Beijing, the temptation will be to exploit the moment. And for the region, from Manila to Hanoi to Tokyo, this episode reinforces a lesson already well understood. In a contested Indo-Pacific, even routine operations can shape the future. If you like the video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel for deep analysis of contemporary issues.